begin the March Isicsb board meeting. Holly, if you could please call roll.
Present, representing communication centers.
Andy Benson. Curtis Wilton.
Present, representing UMass.
Michelle Bishop.
Present, representing fire.
David Ness.
Here with municipal police.
Jeff Vandewater.
Present, representing sheriffs.
Patrick Gutdyke.
Present, member at large.
And do we have any legislative members? We do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you, Holly. Appreciate that. Thank you all for attending today's meeting, and we will jump into today's agenda, approval of today's agenda, unless there are any amendments that are needed.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from the February 13th meeting. I will entertain a motion.
Tabling a motion.
Have a motion and a second. Great. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That brings us to the SWIC report. SWIC Nichols.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. Just to let everyone know, Isicsb committee meetings will all be moving to Teams over the next month or so. If you have any issues or difficulties with that, please reach out to Holly or myself. April is the next round of TA requests. I've been asked to present our priority one request. And top of the list is the INCM, or Incident Communications Center Manager. This course is designed to prepare public safety communication professionals for managing all functions of an Incident Command Center, or ICC. I reported in the 911 Council meeting at 9:30 that we were waiting to hear about the COML, and in the last few minutes I heard that the COML in Council Bluff has been canceled. So I sent out an email to all of those registered participants. And as soon as we get information about when that can be rescheduled, I'll let them know. But to reiterate, the COML that was scheduled for April 1st through the 4th has been canceled. I believe that's due to federal funding and questions that are up in the air for that. So that's been canceled. The ComT Communications Unit Technician is scheduled for June 2nd through the 6th. That's a state-sponsored course be held in Cedar Rapids. I will be getting the registration live, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. We should have that course move forward because we'll be supplying our own Iowa instructors. So I don't have any concerns with being able to hold that course. I will mention the tri-state events happening June 12th, the tabletop, and September 19th, a functional exercise in the Dubuque area with Wisconsin and Illinois. With everything that's up in the air, I really don't know what will happen with those yet. So more to come. And then I will give an update on the IMED project. The grant funds have been paused, so equipment orders and programming is currently stalled. Right now, I will update everyone when that resumes. There is an updated EMS communications plan that's live on the HHS website. That plan moved communications from legacy VHF communications to the Isicsb 7800 platform as the primary method of communications between hospitals, emergency medical services, and emergency communication centers in the state of Iowa. and that legacy plan hadn't been updated since 1978. So I recommend that everyone go out and find that plan and give it a read. And that's all I have for updates, unless there's any questions for me. I think you're muted. What did we lose?
Michelle, you might be muted.
That's the problem.
Great. 911 Council report, Program Manager Darushi.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Real brief today. If you are interested in any 911 topics or legislation, I would encourage you to go back and watch the 911 Council meeting YouTube video that from the meeting that was held previous to Isicsb. Other than that, just two things for you. We did approve APCO NINA conference training for their spring conference. That will be Denise Amber Lee Foundation training sessions. And then the other item is kind of a continuation from last month, where we are going to be doing a social media campaign on National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, really telling the story of telecommunicators, why they got into the job, what they like about their job, and just really sharing information to the public about what you do and why you do it. So if you are interested, or if you are a telecommunicator and wanting to share your story, we're still looking for a few more. At this point, we only have a handful. We're looking for some more. You have till the end of March. Reach out to me and I'll get you the link or the QR code to kind of give us your information and tell your story. So if you're interested in that, just let me know. Other than that, that's all I have. I would take any questions.
Great. Thank you. Blake, are there any questions for Program Manager Darushi? That brings us to the User Group Committee and Chair Vandewater.
The users group met on February 20th. By my count, we had 11 members present with 6 guests. We had a brief RIC 1 report. We adjusted our agenda. Haley was at a school, and in case she got taken away, went ahead and gave us an in-depth presentation on what qualifies as eligible users for Isicsb via various definitions that are found in the Iowa Code, FCC rulings, the Department of Interior, Black's Law Dictionary, the MOA, and the various Isicsb standards and guidelines. The info will be sent out when it's all compiled together. She's working on a checklist to help us through the application process. She also spoke of pending legislation, and then we reviewed 3 applications be on the new business section today. That concludes my report, and I'll take any questions.
Very well. Thank you, Chair Vandewater. Appreciate your efforts. Are there any questions for the User Group Committee? That brings us to Finance. Holly, can you pull up the financials, please? The Financial Committee, or the Finance Committee, did meet and reviewed the financials. There is one error in the report that the adjustment that was made a couple months ago got duplicated, so that will be recorrected. But other than that, there were no anomalies in the finance report, and everything was status quo. Are there any questions regarding the Finance Committee? That brings us to governance and Chair Ness.
Thank you, Chair. The Governance Committee met on Monday, the 3rd, and we continue to work through old policies in need of a update. So we'll be bringing those back periodically as they're ready to do so. That's the end of my report unless there are questions.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions for governance? Thank you, Major Ness. Operations and Chair Erpelding.
Operations Committee was scheduled to meet last Wednesday, March 5th. Due to the weather conditions and everyone being extremely busy with their normal duties, it was decided to cancel that meeting due to the light workload. We will convene next month. That concludes my report.
Great, thanks, Luke. Are there any questions regarding the Operations Committee? That brings us to Training and Outreach Committee. Chair Wotan.
Thank you, Chair. We just continued working on the white papers and some of the plain language stuff. Other than that, that concludes my report.
Very well. Thank you, Curtis. Are there any questions for the Training and Outreach Committee? That brings us to the Technology Committee and Chair Updike.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I sound a little scratchy here. It's because I'm battling another illness. But anyways, I'll try to get through this. The Technology Committee met on the 27th of February and the 6th of March. The two things that we worked on kind of work hand in hand. So let me start with standard 2.12.6, which addresses over-the-air rekeying. A lot of discussion there. Some of the concern was that maybe it's geared a little too much towards the end user when it should be geared towards the administrator or subsystem administrators. And so we were working through some of that wording, removing some of the subscriber end user wording potentially. One of the other things that came up in this standard was with the way things are being done with rekeying, we're looking at adding Ethernet type rekeying and tactical rekeying, which is on-site rekeying. So the hope is that we can reword the over-the-air rekeying part of it and add Ethernet and tactical rekeying into this standard. And then once that's done, then push it back to operations and move on from there. Recently, there was an email that came out about securing law enforcement talk groups with, encryption. And so we started digging into this discipline-specific encryption again for talk groups on the Isicsb system. And we always kind of get dead-ended because once you start looking at encryption at a statewide level where you have separate agencies out there that can do their own encrypting, it becomes a huge management problem. And so we're trying to figure out how do you manage the encryption side of it if it's outside of the local level. The other topic that came up was a proposal to add additional talk groups at a sub-regional, regional, and state level that would include more generic names of the talk groups. And so there was a tabletop exercise that was done where they created or could have created talk groups that are generic in form, like perimeter and staging, talk groups that are easier for the end user to understand. And so that creates a separate problem within itself too. How do you manage all of that? And so we're working through it. We're in the initial stages of all this. I can't tell you exactly how it's going to end up, but just just know that we're looking into this law enforcement only encrypted type talk groups to either add or not add to the system going forward. And best I can tell you is film at 11. We'll get more info as it comes out. And that's all I got for you.
Very well. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate the efforts of the technology group. Are there any questions for Chair Updike and the technology group? FirstNet Broadband Subcommittee, Chair Benson.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
We met this week on Tuesday. We continue to highlight who's on FirstNet during the quarterly newsletter. If anyone's not familiar with that site, please feel free to reach out to myself. I can put you in contact with our Who's on FirstNet. Who's on FirstNet web designer and webmaster for that. He's a wonderful person, can get you hooked up with that site. We also spoke on dates for the coverage workshop for Iowa. Tom Lampy was not able to attend our meeting. He got pulled into another meeting at that time, but we'll have a brief out from our AT&T partners a little on in this presentation, a little on in this meeting rather. But other than that, we didn't have any action items. So that really concludes my report. I'd entertain any questions if anyone has anything. If not, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Chair Benson and the FirstNet Broadband Subcommittee?
Thank you.
Very well, thanks. That brings us to other reports. First item is information sharing among board members. Are there any members of the board that would like to share information with other board members?
Chair, this is Dave Ness, and I'd just like to express appreciation for technology, as you did, for once again looking into the law enforcement specific encryption. I know that's come up repeatedly over the years, and I think this year, for those that weren't aware of the genesis of the most recent request, I think as additional non-public safety or non-traditional public safety users have joined access or joined Isicsb, which is positive in a lot of ways. I think there's some concern that not only narcotics, but high-risk entries and so forth may be monitored by people that should not be doing so. So I know it's a big lift, and some progress has been made in the narcotics realm, for instance, with a dedicated zone, and I'm just cautiously optimistic that continued progress can be made toward this goal, which seems increasingly necessary as the system matures. And that's not to say that the interop zone or the statewide system needs to solve all the problems. In Des Moines, for instance, we have many opportunities, but the purpose of interop is to allow people that are on different systems or have different subsystems to interop together, and in those incidents certainly happen with increased frequency. And so I think we just need to recognize and continue to work towards providing a solution for that. So sorry for the rambling, but thank you, and for the continued effort in advance. That's all.
Yes. Thank you, Major Ness. Yeah, it is something we have wrestled with often. It is a need of the law enforcement discipline, but it comes with its own challenges that are need technology and need operations to work through. So, yep, happy to work through that, and together we'll find a solution. Are there any other items that would need to be shared? I have a short list, and then I'll ask again. So if anyone thinks of anything, there will be another opportunity. Senate File 89 did not pass the funnel, in that it did not get taken up by a full committee. It had a subcommittee review, but not a full committee review. It's my understanding that there is still a pathway for it to be brought forward, though it's unlikely because of it doesn't have appropriations and things associated with it. That's my understanding. So that's the update on that Senate file 89. And if you'll remember, that was the proposed legislation that allowed everyone that's identified under, oh shoot, the code section escapes me, but it's basically like those ancillary agencies, so like tow companies, private security, private ambulance. There's a list of agencies or businesses that would be then granted access if they so chose to the system. It's that legislation that I'm referring to that did not pass the funnel. As the SWIC indicated, Isicsb is moving to Teams. You all should have received an email. Board members, please work through that and ensure that you are able to access the team. And we will be expanding that out to committees and over the next few months. So just be aware of that. The intent is that we will use that as the central repository for document creation, as well as recording of meetings to include committee meetings. There's also work being done by the advisory group and the SWIC in regards to committee makeup and to provide direction to committees, much like what Chair Vanderwater was referring to, documents such as that, giving guidance to the committee so there's continuity between chairs as to what that committee is responsible for, as well as how membership of a committee is determined. In reviewing documents, we have come upon the fact that that's one of the weak points. So as we're now a more mature board, we need to fill that gap. So those are the items that I had to share with the board of things that haven't otherwise been reported or just a little greater detail. Are there any questions regarding the items that I have shared? Or are there any other items to be shared? Hearing none, that brings us to the Isicsb System Administrator Report. Scott Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I will begin with Isicsb maintenance. We have tower work scheduled at 5 sites this week. Tower light repairs, those sites are Hooper, Adams, Story, Beaver, and Hardin. We've also discovered radon damage at 5 sites as well, and those are to be scheduled at Cedar Rapids, Story, Calhoun, Fort Dodge, and Sioux. Quarterly Isicsb core security patching will be on March 17th and 18th, with 18th being the zone controller rollovers at 12:45 and 4:30. That will briefly drop off consoles, and sites will go into site trunking briefly as well. Those usually recover within 1 to 2 minutes. Isicsb annual RF maintenance began this week for 2025 with 7 sites in Southwest Iowa. Those are Fremont, Glenwood, Underwood, Hutchings, Malvern, South Pease, and Mineola. Beyond that, I've got Isicsb numbers for February of 25. Radios currently stand at 42,873. Groups are currently at 3,593. We had just over 2.8 million push-to-talks for the month of February. With that, that concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Scott. Are there any questions for the sysadmin? That brings us to the FirstNet Authority. Tom Lampy.
Thank you, Chair. I do not have a program or network updates this month. However, I do want to remind people that we are scheduling the coverage enhancement workshop this spring, and we'll be looking for the dates to have one here in Iowa. The purpose of this meeting is to assist you in planning for the areas of interest for the coverage in Iowa. In other states, we've learned from stakeholders that, and we have received positive feedback, allowing us to use your feedback to improve your network here in Iowa. So that's my report.
Very well, thank you. An AT&T update from Bart Blank.
He is off today. I don't know if anybody else is representing them. He told me he was going to be off today.
Oh, very well. Thank you for that information. Is there anyone on the line from AT&T? That brings us to the CISA update. Chris Myers.
Thank you, Chair Bischoff. Good morning, board. Appreciate the time as always today. We are going to start off with talking about technical assistance deliveries for state. Now, your SWIC should have received an email from ECD headquarters yesterday outlining some of the status updates on technical assistance submissions, and information is still being sent out this morning. We are going to look forward, though, towards the April request period, as the assumption currently is that we will hopefully have some guidance on funding by then. And we want to make sure we have those things lined up. The focus for any type of ask going forward is going to be focusing on resiliency and communications. This could be PSAP focused. It could be focused on emergency response, where you start looking at those courses and things of the such. Iowa's already taken a proactive status on trying to make sure they articulate what they want next. So the next bullet point about priority 2 through 5 items likely will not be applicable to the state. But we do want to make sure that we have everything lined up for the April submission period, which at this point it sounds like we do. We can roll into the next slide. A couple of the request categories that are out there, these are being updated also. State and territory prioritized TAs are going to be the focal point going forward, along with SCIPs. Now, Iowa's in a good position because you guys have recently updated your SCIP. So that is done. So you guys have a lot you can lean on with respect to that. State-sponsored courses still appear like they're going to be deliverable, especially the ones where they are CISA-specific deliveries. This would include things like your communications technician course and others. We are going to be also looking at emergent needs out there along with special events. So we are expecting at this point a lot of the Kansas City requests related to FIFA to go on without any real hiccups, hopefully. Otherwise, the regional news of note, pay attention to what may be coming out from Kansas City coming up about an incident communications manager course. And then for those of you that were interested in the multi-region RecWig that was scheduled for April 15th through the 17th, that has been moved to a purely virtualized format. It will likely be done over the course of several months worth of deliveries, and be on the lookout for those announcements coming soon from FEMA. Otherwise, that is my report for the month, Chair Bischoff. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Very well. Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions regarding this as an update? Are there any old business items? That brings us to new business and new Isicsb user approval. And I'll turn this over to Chair Vanderwater for our three new users.
We reviewed these applications. This month, there was little discussion about these applications. So therefore, I would make a motion that the full board approve new user applications that appear on the agenda. Broadlawns Medical Center, Civil Air Patrol of the Iowa wing of the Civil Air Patrol, and the Pella Cooperative Electrical Association.
Very well. Well, there's a motion. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, if all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next item is the awarding of the INTD credentials to Brian Albright.
Okay, yeah, we have one credential today for INTD. That's Brian Albright of State Fair Police.
Page.
No, I do.
Thank you very much. Here. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for your hard work on that.
Appreciate it.
And again, thank you to just the continued work on all those agencies in the state of Iowa that are helping to get you professionals and sending those people to those classes when we are able to have those. So thank you.
Great. Congratulations, Brian. That brings us to public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board? None? And seeing none? That brings us to adjournment. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Andy,
In a second?
Andy Water?
Benson will second.
Excellent. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We sit adjourn. Thank you all for your time.